Okay, so I'll start then with the reason why I'm here today, and that is the space X Space that is scheduled to take place on Thursday, the 23rd at 9 p.m. UTC. If you're watching this video, that space will have already taken place because we took the decision to record this session in advance of that so that we could ensure that the key points and key messaging from the space are recorded and released as soon as the space is over. So the space call is essentially a general discussion around the sustainability of projects, focusing on the XRPL, but I'm sure it's going to go beyond that during the course of the conversation. And when I was having a conversation with Wietse a few weeks ago, he was sharing with me some of his ideas and plans for the future of XRPL Labs. And I felt like it would be ideal for Wietse as a leader in this space to come on and give his own views of the issue around sustainability. And that's when we got into the conversation about some of his plans. And so it'll be an ideal platform for Wietse to be able to share his views on how he intends to move XRPL Labs forward, and be an opportunity for the community to listen in and give feedback. And so we have almost an inclusive vibe going on. So that's the main reason for the space. And the bulk of the information in this video will certainly come from Wietse. Over to Wietse.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Eri, for hosting this. Chris, for organizing this. I've been thinking about the sustainability of the ecosystem for a very long time, actually, and we've been present at XRPL Labs, and so a couple of the early days XRPL Labs employees and myself. We've been active in the space for 7 years. And the company exists for 5 years. We've been building software for the XRP ledger for 5 years, which we all know feels like ages in the blockchain world. And we've had a very, very good run thanks to all of you and enthusiastic developers and users. And we've come a long way in the past 5 years, just building things and growing things. And we've had a lot of support doing that. But I think after 5 years of building, it's sort of a natural moment to look back and look forward, right? And if you're going to look forward to what we want to build the next 5 years, and if you reflect on what we have done in the past 5 years, you're inevitably going to touch upon topics like viability, right? How are you going to pay the bills? Where's the money going to come from? Who's going to support you? How are you gonna pay your staff? How are you going to feed your families? And the obvious response in the blockchain world still today, after somewhere between 5 to 10 years of blockchain projects building, would be ask for grants, right? And we've received grants for 5 years, and we will receive grants, no doubt, for some time to come. But I think we should want to build an ecosystem, product, software that in time is able to sustain itself, that is able to allow employees to work on it, to feed their families, because they are building a product that's being appreciated not only with likes and downloads, but also with payments, which is a topic I didn't really felt like discussing for a very long time, right? It's something in the ecosystem that has a certain well, maybe even negative connotation. Payments for using a crypto app. So self-custody is all about being your own, well, bank or whatever it is, a bit like being autonomous, being your own man or woman, and no one can tell you what to do, what not to do, and paying for that freedom is certainly not something that comes to mind when people think self-custody and blockchain wallets. But I also think that it's time to have a discussion, and I'm very happy that Chris felt the same way, and we started talking, and he said, well, then let's organize a space and open the public discussion. And you know what? I'm ready to have the discussion, not just for XRPL Labs, because we want to be around for years to come. We want to still offer top-notch security for all of the users in the XRPL ecosystem who want to self-custody their funds. We want to be able to pay for security audits. We want to be able to pay the developers who are working full-time to build every upcoming new amendment into the products we're building, into the software we're building. But it's time to have the discussion, not for XRPL Labs alone, but for the entire ecosystem. Because if you build a very cool AMM platform or NFT marketplace or future DeFi product with all the amendments coming up, you need to be able to make a living as well. Otherwise, all those projects are going to gain traction, at some point fail to secure another grant, and they're going to go again. And then in 5 years' time, we're going to look back and wonder why we're basically still at the same stage as we were right now, today. And I think this discussion even goes beyond the blockchain space. I think this is a problem in the software world, where many developers are building open source software. Everyone is using it in their commercial products, and they are not able to make a living from maintaining what they've built. Meanwhile, it's being incorporated in commercial products by Apple and Google, and more developers are getting vocal about this as well. And I think it's not even limited to the software world. I think it's a problem we have in society, where everyone needs to figure out how they're gonna make a living, and if their contributions to their job, their hobby, their presence in society, to society in general, if their contributions are being rewarded by that same society or audience or user base in a way where it's actually sustainable to keep on doing it. And then the thing I expect to happen during the discussion, but by the time you're seeing this, the discussion has already been had, and you can listen to the entire space, which is probably going to take some time. So this is the gist of it. What I expect to happen is to also receive a lot of negative comments and feedback, where people downloaded a free software product and they are completely not used to paying for anything in the self-custody blockchain space. And they really have no intention to pay for anything, and it feels like freedom being taken away. So I think what's very important is that we have a discussion, not only so we get on the same line and we all understand the why it's necessary, the consequences of not having this discussion and not making changes, but also to find a way where it works for everyone, right? Where we don't push everyone in this ecosystem, everyone who carefully considered the ecosystem they want to be present in, who carefully considered which wallet they trust and downloaded, where we don't push everyone away. Because the one thing the ecosystem can't use today is pushing users away. We're in this together, and we want to grow the ecosystem, not shrink it. So I want to find a way where it works for everyone, where we might not be at a break-even point today, and maybe not in a year, but at least where we have a shot at reaching that point in 3 or 5 years, where we can work towards that, where users can still use the product for free, where they still get support. It's crucial if we want to grow the ecosystem, but where if you are a power user, if you gain certain value from the product, above average value from the product you're using, you're also supporting that product. And not because we're asking you or demanding you to pay, but because you want to pay, because you want it to be around 3 to 5 years from now. And where we find a way for all of us to be able to discuss the monetization of our hard work. And I'd like to take the lead, opening up that discussion, because it's going to affect the entire ecosystem. It's not just us. And I expect people, for example, to wonder why isn't this an XRPL ecosystem thing? Is there something wrong in the XRPL ecosystem? I don't think so, actually. I think every ecosystem will have this problem today or in the future. But maybe we're just the first ones to address it, and maybe that's a good thing. I mean, we're in the XRPL ecosystem. I guess we're used to being the first in many things, right? We were the first with a DEX. We were the first with many things. And another thing I expect to happen is people to wonder why, for example, we have to monetize the product. Why shouldn't Ripple support us? Well, Ripple has been supportive, very supportive for a very long time, and I expect them to be supportive for another time. but it's not healthy. It's not a viable product if that's the only reason why we can stay around, why we can exist. Because I mean, there are any number of so here's completely hypothetical. I don't expect this to happen, and I don't even have an opinion about if it should or shouldn't happen. But let's say Ripple loses or burns or whatever all their tokens, and they don't have anything to give away anymore. What if that then, I mean, the ledger will definitely live on, but what if that would result in every project being built in the ecosystem falling over because they don't get the support they got used to getting all the time? I don't think the ecosystem should work that way. I think the users who gain value from the products they use should also contribute to some degree to the support that those projects need to be around in the future. And if products can't sustain themselves, they're not products, they're hobbies. And if you're talking about hobbies, then I mean there's an end to it, right? If there's if the hobby isn't fun anymore, if the hobby costs too much, if you can't feed your family with your hobby, which is usually not the case because it's a hobby. So yeah, a discussion to have right now, not tomorrow, not next year, not because I expect for all problems to be solved after having this discussion and making some changes, but because I feel everyone should be making their decisions based on the same information being shared with them and shared by them to come up with a way that has the respect and works for everyone to hopefully be around with a thriving ecosystem 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now, and hopefully give an example to the entire space as well, that it is okay to discuss monetization even in a self-custodial world. So hope you're gonna enjoy listening to the full space and join the discussion.
I think, Wietse, there's going to be far less negative commentary than you think.
I hope that. I hope so. The reason why I'm not entirely sure is that I agree with you if we're talking usual suspects, right? The people who regularly engage in the ecosystem. But there are over 100,000 users we never really reach on social media. But as soon as they're gonna see something about monetization, they are going to join the discussion, some of them, and are gonna reach out. And so I never really had any negative comments about this on Twitter, even if we hinted at it. But if we look at, for example, our support tickets, it's a completely different world out there. Those are the people who aren't vocal on social media, who aren't supportive, who don't feel like they have a relationship with the ecosystem or our product or us as a company. So I do expect these people or some of these people to crawl behind their keyboard once they read something on a crypto news outlet, who are definitely gonna pick up on this. And I think that might change the sentiment to some degree. But if that isn't happening, then even better. Then I underestimated the people in the ecosystem. What's important is that if we have a project, if we run a project, we should take responsibility. We're founders, we're business owners, we're entrepreneurs. It's our responsibility to think about how we're going to be around in the long run. And then if you don't have the answer and you can't figure it out, you have nothing to try, then you might as well accept and admit at the beginning that you're basically doing a testing the waters, breeding ground hobby project, which is still fine. I can still imagine that a project that has no business model at all and allows a couple of developers to build something crazy creative in 6 months, then for them no longer to be able to support it, can still contribute to an ecosystem. There are more people learning about the technology. The collective intellectual property is increasing. An idea from someone that might be completely unviable might yield another idea with different people that might be viable in due time, right? So you can set something in motion. I'd say it's perfectly fine to give a grant to something that doesn't have a business model, but then just I mean that's just make sure that everyone is aware that the projects at that point aren't there to stay around. That it's a research grant basically. And if you want to build a business and want to be around in the long run and maybe get continued support for a while, then it should be to reach a point where you can sustain yourself. I would say this space is especially not about grants. It's about when no grants would exist anymore. Can we then do we still have an ecosystem? Another interesting thing, is the last thing I will be saying about grants, because I mean there's no way around the topic, right? But an interesting idea, or I think an interesting idea would be to for example, link grant amounts to the actual monetization project reach. Where there's a multiplier on the monetization project managed to gain by themselves. So why should a grant be a fixed amount? Why shouldn't it be, for example, doubling or tripling the monetization that the project manages to make? That way, it's over much faster if they gain 0 traction, but it also allows them to keep going and do more and more if they actually succeed at building a product that's being rewarded by the community, voting with their wallet. I actually like that one in the ecosystem. It's a bit ambiguous. Voting with your wallet, right? We're in self-custody wallet space, and we're not talking votes here. People are literally going to vote with their wallet if a project's going to be around. And there are many ways to do this, right? You can monetize individual transactions. You can work with a subscription model. You can work, and that's one of the things I really want to discuss during the space and after, where I want to have discussion about what works for people, right? Maybe people don't want yet another subscription, or maybe people want the freedom of choice to basically support 1 month and don't support the next month, but to keep on using it because they'll be around for yet another month where they will pay because they use it some more. Maybe there's a negative sentiment about fees on the transaction, because maybe people joined the XRPL with one of the reasons that it's fast and cheap, right? And then suddenly, if you're gonna pay on an individual transaction basis, maybe it doesn't feel cheap anymore, and maybe that takes away some of the pleasure of being in this ecosystem. So and maybe there's not one answer for all the projects, but and maybe there are even different sentiments across the globe. Maybe there are different regions where certain things are done or not done, or where maybe the communication around the monetization needs a different angle or tone of voice, right? So all of these things matter, because if we get this right, we have a shot at building maybe the first sustainable blockchain ecosystem. So, I mean, that would be awesome. So we have the infrastructure, we made the decision, it is going to happen. We can ease into it. We can A/B test basically to see what people like and don't like, but preferably we will A/B test only minor differences, because we already figured out together with the community what works for most people. But yeah, I expect us to implement some kind of monetization within 1 to 2 months, and I also guarantee that it won't affect everyone. If you use the wallet to hold and just check your balance every now and then and send a payment to someone, push payment by manually sending, then you're not going to hit any monetization limit. I mean, you don't want to scare those are that's how people join the ecosystem. That's what they first do. They install a wallet, and maybe they send one test payment or send something from or to an exchange. You're not going to monetize that. But those are the prospects who, if they start to use the ecosystem more and gain more value out of the ecosystem and the product and the wallet and the security they gain, those are the people that in time might want to support you. And there are certain features that I feel that should always be available and should never be monetized. So never compromise on security, never compromise on support availability, never compromise the core functionality of the ledger. So if you just want to send a payment to an exchange with a destination tag, no monetization should ever be in the way of you just using your funds to send them elsewhere. But if you're going to interact with sign requests, if you're going to use XApps a lot, if you have a significant holding where you would argue that the security becomes like of utmost importance, because if something happens to it, right, the security audit is for you. If there's no security audit because we can't pay for it, for some people it will mean having millions of XRP vulnerable, crazy amounts. Then, I mean, just support us to keep your funds safe. So yeah, there will be different things, different metrics that will push someone towards being required or asked or required to support us. And I think we should do that very soon. I think it makes no sense to wait much longer. We're having this discussion right now. We're gonna learn what people want, like, don't want, and then just roll with it. And we can always adjust along the way, right? We can always make changes, and over time figure out something that works for everyone. Maybe I'm pretty certain that it's not fair to pick the same amounts, for example, for the entire world, because some people are using the wallet still a lot, right? They get a lot of value out of the wallet or use or any other platform, but they're living in a country where basically 90% of the population lives off 300 euros a month. Why should they pay the same amount as, for example, Western Europe or the US? So maybe we should even consider applying the Big Mac index on fees. Who knows? All things to explore, all things where we have certain ideas, but that's just what we think and feel. And now I want to figure out what we collectively feel. The crazy part is that exchanges aren't even making a shit ton of money these days, because the development costs and the changes they have to make for regulatory reasons and ramping up their compliance is so expensive these days that even exchanges are struggling, which is why you suddenly see more shitcoin listings, because they need listing fees. They're raising again, and it gets harder. They're not even raising the funds they need to raise in reasonable amounts of time. So there's something wrong in the entire ecosystem. Some of it isn't necessarily wrong. For example, the increasing costs of compliance and the changes to make their eyes. Some of these changes are just necessary and good. Some of them might go a little bit too far. But I wouldn't call it a bad thing that money's being spent on those things. But it does restrict the good things these exchanges can do to again contribute to a viable ecosystem. So yeah, project will have to figure it out for themselves, but that basically means that the projects need to address the users and tell the users that they will have to figure it out for themselves. The more reliable, the more trustworthy the exchange is, the bigger their problem is, because the higher the costs are, they are currently investing in compliance staff, compliance procedures, license application, preparing for MiCA and other things. So I know for a fact that a couple of really big names, like the top trusted exchanges, are actually struggling and have very limited runway, which was an eye opener for me as well. I mean, everyone looks at these. I mean, even Ripple, when discussing, for example, monetizing infrastructure, right? If we brainstorm with Ripple, like, how are we gonna not just Ripple, not us, how are we collectively gonna figure out how to make the infra operations sustainable? And you look at, well, who's making money in this ecosystem? Well, the exchanges are making money. Well, they aren't, not really. They have been making money for a lot of years, but with today's regime and upcoming changes, they're also not really viable anymore. I mean, if you're trying to get a corporate registration with an exchange, the KYB procedures you have to go through, the amount of documentation you'll have to send, forms to fill out, And the amount of time they will have to spend, no doubt, with their compliance staff to go through all of that information, ask the right questions. I would not be surprised if registering a company account at a tier 1 exchange is going to set you back €1,000 very soon. It would make perfect sense if I want to register a bank account. It's also not uncommon to pay a fee just to go through the onboarding procedure. If you, as a private citizen, get a mortgage, you're also going to pay a fee for the entire mortgage onboarding procedure, basically. So I think we're going to see those things. I think we're going to pay to open an exchange account to go through onboarding.
I think you're going to find that the majority of people, and when I say majority, I'm thinking the 75 to 80% range, are going to be more than happy to pay to support you, because that
would be amazing, because that would mean break even after 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we crunched the numbers. So yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Wietse, take care.
Talk soon.
Thank you,
too.
Chris.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.